God keeps his promises. He is trustworthy. Nothing is impossible for God. God says something pretty amazing too. Did you understand that bit? That one day somebody, Jesus, was one of those family members from Abraham's family. That one day Jesus would come to be that blessing to bless the whole world. Now on our chart, what is important in trusting God? I think we could put a few things from Abraham's story today. First of all, nothing is impossible with God. See how I've crossed out "im" and I've put "possible"? With our God, nothing is impossible. Let's put that up. Secondly, I think we should put up there that God keeps his promises. He made some wonderful promises to Abraham, and he's the same God today that keeps his promises. And we need to hang on to those promises that he makes for us. Also, I think we should put on our chart that as we trust, sometimes we need to wait. So I'm going to put this word waiting, and there's a little boy, waiting. Sometimes we need to wait until God answers our prayers or we see what he's doing. The last one I'm going to put up there is action. Sometimes when we're trusting, God asks us to do something. He asked Abraham to actually leave what he knew and actually follow God. So he had to take an action. So I'm going to put that up there as well. So there's 4 things we've put on our chart today to remind us. And on our page, we've actually, underneath our talk section on this page, we've got some questions that you and your family might like to spend some time talking through some of these things. So after this finishes, you might want to go to the talk part and spend some time. But now I have one of your leaders, Eloise, who's going to come in today and going to tell you about a time where she had to trust God and how that was hard.
Hey Kids Church, so you've just heard the story of Abraham and how he had to trust God and leave his land. And now I'm going to share with you a trust story of my own. So I'm in year 10 now, but when I was in year 7 and I had to start high school, I was really scared. I'd come from a really small primary school and none of my friends from there were coming with me into high school. So it was a really new experience and I just wasn't sure what it was going to be like. Every morning I would find myself distraught and I just couldn't face the fact that this was real and it was going to become the new normal. And that happened for the first week. I was then reminded of an old kids' church craft that I had kept, and it was the only one that I'd kept for so long, and I think God had a reason for that. So it looks like this, and the verse is Joshua 1:9. And that says, "Be strong and courageous, do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." Even though I was still very nervous about this experience, I kept this verse in the back of my mind and I reminded myself that whatever I did and wherever I went, God was going to be with me and he was going to be by my side. So I told myself that if I trusted in God, that he would do for me what this verse said. And looking back now, I can see that it was because of my trust in God and my trust in the truth of this verse that helped me get through the first few tough weeks before I got settled in. So I encourage you guys that if you're ever nervous or scared about anything, that you remember this verse and you remember that God's always by your side and he'll be with you wherever you go.
Thank you, Eloise. That is awesome. And you know, that verse that Eloise just shared with you is actually our memory verse for today. So thank you, Eloise. And I love it that she's kept that craft that she did in Kids Church. There's lots of ways you at home can be learning your memory verses. Do you know, Eloise shared one, she made that little hanger of a verse. I saw Rachie had her promises up on her notice board at home. You can find something at home to make. I actually found a cereal box at home. Someone in my house had Cocoa Pops. And I turned it in to a little book called God's Promises. And I put some pipe cleaners on the side and I put some pages inside. And now I'm sticking some of God's promises and it actually stands up on my table. You could do something like this. I've put our other memory verse for today in here. For with God, nothing shall be impossible. And that's from Luke. So that memory verse and the one that Eloise just shared, I've put in my promise book, which I made from a cereal box. So you can be creative at home. You can make something or you can do something. I saw somebody who did a clapping pattern and did the memory verse to a clapping pattern. There's lots of ideas we've put on our page here for you to have a look at, and we've also put our 2 memory verses for you to have a look at. But you know, I was actually in my time in the Bible this week looking at Deuteronomy, which is in the Bible just after Genesis, a few books later. And you know, just when God gave his special people, the Israelites, some instructions and promises, this is what he said for the people to do. He said, talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you get up. Tie them as symbols around your hands. So maybe make a bracelet with your memory verse. He said, bind them on your foreheads. Maybe make a headband with a memory verse. And he said, write them on the door frames of your home. Better check with mum and dad first before you do that one. But he's saying, don't let these words just forget about them. We want to put them around us, so we're taking them in. And I love it how Eloise had those words, and then one day God used them as she'd stored them in her heart, and he used them to remind her of he was trustworthy. Next week, we're going to have Lara Bullen, another one of your leaders, come in, and she's going to help you with the actions to one of the songs we put on our website. It's a great song. It is called Our Hope is in the Lord, and it also talks about this trust. Now, some of you might be saying at home, how can you do a week on Abraham and not do the song, Father Abraham? Well, I'm not going to do it. But I have put Father Abraham on the page so you as a family at home can do all the actions for Father Abraham. Before we go, though, would you just let me pray? We thank you, God, that you are trustworthy and that you do keep your promises and that you can do the impossible. Please help us grow in our trust in you. May we get to know and hold on to your promises. Please help us when we need to wait. Help us keep trusting and help us to listen to you to know when you want us to act in following you. Amen. So kids, I hope you have some fun with your families, doing some of these activities, learning the memory verses, doing the songs, and don't forget, we're looking for more names for the cow, but please send in all the things that you're doing so that you'll get your name on the wheel. See you next week.